بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The story of the people of the elephant is one of the most fascinating stories in the Holy Quran, and is a story which requires a thorough analysis, for it is a story which affects each and every one of our lives, a story from which many a lesson may be learned, and indeed many an extraordinary example may be derived, and a story with a historical basis and a contemporary significance. As we know, the Quran is a book which is replete with stories of people of past generations. The aim of each of these stories is not just to be taken as historical masterpieces. As in today, when people dissect the stories of the Quran, on many occasions they only look at them as pieces of history. You find that when they hear of the story of the people of Ad, or the people of Thamud, or the people of Madian, or Ashab al-Fil, on many occasions they take the story as a piece of history, that an incident like that took place 1,400 years ago. The reality of the Quran is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala included these stories within 6,500 verses, He wanted us to dissect the origin of the stories and see which of the lessons of those stories affect us in 2011. As in, otherwise the Quran will just be a book of history. If it's meant to be a book for mankind, a book for mankind should not just be taken as a book of history. A book for mankind is a book where the historical stories that were chosen were stories chosen for a specific reason. As in, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses this story, there must be certain lessons which will apply to the life of the human being until the day of judgment. Be the human being in the East, be the human being in the West, be the human being in an age of technological advancement or not, you find that there are certain ethical, legal, theological, spiritual lessons that emerge from this story. And indeed this story, Surah 105 of the Holy Quran, is a very much undervalued story. As in, if you were to ask many Muslims, have you memorized Surah Al-Fil? They'll say to you, yes, of course, as in a matter of 5 verses I can memorize them. If, however, you were to ask a Muslim, what are the lessons you gain from Surah Al-Fil? As in, what lessons did you gain from an incident which was so famous that the Arabs would base a lot of their heritage on the year of the elephant? As in, Aam al-Fil was a year which the Arabs would even take as a calendar year, a year which they based their events on. You'd find, therefore, that there is a need, when we dissect these stories, to ask ourselves what lessons can be learned from these stories which can be applied into our life today. Therefore, let's dissect the story in a number of stages and see what are the lessons. Firstly, let's try and understand the reason for the revelation. What was the history of Abraha who came to attack the Kaaba? What was Abdul Muttalib's response? What lessons are there to be learned which apply to our life today? How important in Islamic history was it therefore to honor the sanctity of the Kaaba? And did they honor the sanctity when they made Hussein ibn Ali leave the Kaaba without finishing his Hajj rites? Let's examine this and dissect the topic in complete depth. You find that when you come to the story of Ashab al-Fil, Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamu alayh, Imam al-Sadiq has a quite stunning revelation or verse or hadith on this issue. Imam al-Sadiq, what does he state? He comes forward and states, whoever recites Surah al-Fil, be he on a mountain or be he on land, or even if he is on dry soil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise him on the day of judgment, and the masters of the day of judgment will say, let this person enter the heavenly abode without any accounting whatsoever. As an Imam al-Sadiq, when he says something like this, it highlights that these 5 verses have got a monumental energy and meaning about them. Imam al-Sadiq, when he says reciting a chapter, not just anywhere, no, he says even if you're on a mountain, recite Surah al-Fil. If you're on land, recite Surah al-Fil. If you're on dry soil, recite Surah al-Fil, and that you'll come to that day of judgment without accounting. Sometimes Al-Muhammad, when they give us these narrations, they highlight to us that such a story, the more you keep it as part of your life, the more you'll reflect on the lessons that we're going to see. That's why someone came to our 4th Imam on one occasion and said to him, every surah in the Quran has a reason for its revelation. What's the reason why Allah revealed Surah al-Fil to the Arabs? Our 4th Imam explained this quite beautifully. What did he say? He said Abu Talib was of course a great defender of the religion of Islam. Abu Talib once came to the Holy Prophet and said to him, O Prophet of God, the Meccans are asking, are you a prophet just for Mecca, or are you a prophet for the whole of mankind? It's an interesting question. When you've come and said that you're a prophet, are you talking just of the area of Mecca, or is everybody meant to come towards your prophethood? The Prophet looked at Abu Talib, he said, Oh Abu Talib, I am a prophet for the whole of mankind. All races, all genders, every creation of God is to submit to my prophethood. Be they from the land of Rome, or from the land of Persia, or from the land of Arabia. When the Quraysh heard this and heard it from Abu Talib, the Quraysh said, Oh Abu Talib, tell your nephew to stop this message, because the Romans and the Persians, if they find out that these are his words, they're going to come and break the Kaaba into pieces. At that moment, when the Quraysh said this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the surah. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Have you not seen what your Lord did to the people of the elephant? As in, what's the story of the people of the elephant? The story is unbelievable. Originally, the Christians of Najran had been persecuted by a Jewish dictator called Dhu Nu'as al-Himyari. Dhu Nu'as al-Himyari was a Jewish dictator in the town of Najran. He decided that anyone who does not follow his faith should either be compelled to follow or should be burnt. What happened was that Dhu Nu'as captured a number of Christians. When he captured them, the Quran narrates their story. Subhanallah, when you look within the Quran could have easily been a book biased for Islam only, isn't it? As in, the Quran could have been a book which said, we are only going to talk about Muslims. When the Quran spoke about these Christians in Najran, it was highlighting, our Prophet Muhammad has not come to mock the previous people. Rather, he's come to bring a completion to their message. If Judaism came with the law, Christianity came with the spirit of the law, Muhammad's come with the two of them combined. You find therefore that what happened was that these Christians were persecuted in what was the Holocaust. The Quran describes it beautifully in Surah 85. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ بروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود قتل أصحاب الأخدود. Ashab al-Ukhdud were people who would stand by a trench or a ditch. They'd bring the Christians into that ditch, and the Jewish leader would burn all of them alive. As in, sometimes history teaches you magnanimous lessons, doesn't it? As in, history sometimes teaches you that there are things which happen which come back against people, isn't it? You find that they bought that ditch, they burnt the Christians in that ditch. Of the Christians who survived was a man by the name of Dos. This man, he survived. As soon as he survived, he went to the Caesar of Rome. At the time, of course, Rome was seen as what? It was seen as the head place of Christianity. He went to the Caesar of Rome. He said to him, we the Christians of the area of Najran have been persecuted. We have not been looked after. We have been involved in a Holocaust. Holocaust, what does it mean? It means holos kostos, a complete burning. You find he said that we've been burned completely alive. I wondered if you could help us as the Caesar of Rome. The Caesar of Rome said to him, I can help you, but I'd prefer, if considering you're more towards the land of Yemen, I'd prefer that you go to a man by the name of Najashi. Najashi is in Abyssinia. Abyssinia will be closer to Yemen than you coming all the way to Rome. Go to Najashi. This Najashi is a just human being, a man of God. Go to him and you will find that he'll help you. Truly, when they went to this Najashi said, do not worry. A man who's persecuting people, whenever injustice is seen in society, we have to stand up against that injustice. So what did he do? He sent a commander by the name of Irbat. He said, Irbat, I want you to lead an army. Go towards Dhu Nu'as al-Hamyari and defeat him. Irbat took that army of Dhu Nu'as al-Hamyari apart. And under him, he had as his assistant general a man by the name of Abraha. Now, Abraha and Irbat had become in charge of the area of Sana'a. You know, in Yemen, what's the capital of Yemen? Sana'a. You find that they became in charge of that area. It was under the hands of Christians. But this Abraha, even though he was a Christian by name, he didn't have the behavior of Christianity. As in, Christianity is a religion founded on the principles of the behavior of Jesus, son of Mary. The behavior of people of morals. This man had seen Irbat, his commander, take over. Instead of honoring him, what did he do? He decided to kill Irbat and take rule. When the news reached the Najashi said, I do not forgive this person. Remove him from power. When Abraha heard about this, what did Abraha do? When Abraha heard about this, he shaved his head, put soil on his face, the soil of the land of Yemen, and then he sent it back to Abraha, towards Najashi. He said that, please forgive me. I was wrong in what I've done. Najashi, being the leader of the Christian faith, did not say, I don't forgive you. At the end of the day, you find that they saw him as an intermediary between them and God, and Abraha was forgiven. Abraha, when he was forgiven, wanted to pay Najashi back. He wanted to honor Najashi. In which way? He wanted to honor Najashi by building a Kaaba where all of the Arabs would become Christians, and they would leave the Kaaba in Mecca and come towards the Kaaba in Yemen. So he built this grand Kaaba, and you find that at the time when the Kaaba was in Mecca, there were 3 Kaabas present. You had a Kaaba in Mecca, a Kaaba in Najran. Remember in the event of Mubahala, when the Christians of Najran came, they had a Kaaba as well. And there was a Kaaba in Sana'a. He built this Kaaba on the idea that this Kaaba would be a place of worship. A group of juveniles came and burnt this place of his. When they burned the place, he thought it's jealousy. Why? He sent missionaries. He had sent missionaries out to Mecca. He told these Christian missionaries, go there, convert the people of Abraham towards Christianity. Let them all come towards our way. Do not let them stay on this idol worship which they are on. The narrations, what do they mention? The narrations mention that he had sent these missionaries. He thought that these people are obviously jealous of me. They burned my Kaaba. So he decided that I'm going to take it upon myself to go and burn their Kaaba. Because how dare they come near mine? I've built this. I wanted honor and prestige from this. they've come and burnt it. I'm now going to go ahead with an army and I'm going to burn theirs. You find quite beautifully that he decided that I'm going to take a set of animals, a group of animals which these people can never defeat. As in, if you think about it, the elephant is not something anyone can defeat. A horse, a camel may instill in you some sort of fear. But an elephant, when you see it, especially for the Meccans, as in how many elephants had visited Mecca in those days? It's very rare to find elephants that had visited Mecca. Someone says, then how did they visit Yemen? Well, as we mentioned, there were journeys taking place between Africa and Yemen at the time. You find therefore what happened? That he decided, I'm going to head towards these people. But let me go towards them with my group of people, with my soldiers. Let's go and give them a warning first. That I'm not going to take my elephants in straight away. If all of you submit to my way, then I'll let you go. On his way, as he entered towards the precincts, when he entered, he saw a flock of camels. He saw this whole group of camels. As soon as he saw them, say there was 200 of them, he decided, let's take these 200 camels as a sign that we're about to conquer the area. And I'm going to enter. And when I enter, I'm going to make sure that destruction is caused towards these people. The narrations mention that as he entered and took the camels, he decided that I want to meet the head of these people, so that the head of these people knows that's what my intention is when I've come to fight them. Who was the head of the people? The head of the people at the time, the custodian of the Kaaba, was Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Rasulullah. Abdul Muttalib, and you know who was the second custodian of the Kaaba? Khuwaylid, father of Khadija. See how things come together? Khuwaylid, the father of Khadija, his original name is Khalid. Khalid, the nickname for Khalid, and with the Arabs was Khuwaylid. So if your name was Jabir, they'd call you Juwayber. If your name was Khalid, they'd call you Khuwaylid. They were the two custodians. Abdul Muttalib came and sat with Abraha. Abraha was sitting down. When Abdul Muttalib walked in, Abraha looked at him. He said to him, you're a man of some presence. Come and sit next to me. Welcome. Come and sit next to me. Naturally, if you're doing missionary work, sometimes you have to pretend that you like those who you're doing missionary work with, isn't it? As Desmond Tutu used to say, they came into Africa. They had the Bible, we had the land. By the end, they had the land and we had the Bible. So you found that what happened was that this person sat with him. When he sat with him, he looked at him. He said to him, welcome Abdul Muttalib, come and sit near me. So Abdul Muttalib came, he sat near him. When he came and sat near him, he said to him, I've come to destroy your Kaaba. That's my intention of coming here. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I've come to destroy your Kaaba. Abdul Muttalib said, can I have my camels back if you don't mind? He said to him, sorry? He said, my camels, 200 camels, you have them, give them back to me, please. He said, what do you mean 200 camels? I've come and I thought you're a man of respect. My respect has gone. I've come to destroy your Kaaba. And you look at your camels and you want them back? He said, I am a protector for my camels. That house has a protector for itself. Isn't it? I protect my camels. My camels, you've taken 200 of them. The house has a protector for itself. He looked at him and he said, protector, no protector. My army is going to come in. As soon as Abdul Muttalib left the meeting, he went back to the people of Mecca. As soon as he entered upon the people of Mecca, he said to them, O people of Mecca, all of you come together, please listen to me. There is an army that's going to come and attack us. Their leader has taken my camels, and I've told him I want them back. They said, how about the house? He said, the house has its own protector. You find that he said to the people, go to Mount Abu Qubais. If you go today for Hajj, have you seen as you're entering the Haram, there's this big palace on the side. It goes quite high. Most things do over there at the moment. You find that it goes quite high. Of course, that's not an innovation. Building higher than the Kaaba is not a bid'ah. No. You erect a grave, a dharih on a grave is a bid'ah. But building a clock higher than the Kaaba, that's permissible. This is movement with the times. You find that that palace, that was Mount Abu Qubais. They built on top of it. That mountain was a mountain of honor, a mountain of respect. Someone says, what do you mean a mountain of honor and respect? It's just a mountain. No. Every creation of Allah does tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? Even a mountain honors Allah. You find that he said to them, go to Mount Abu Qubais and sit together in dua. Congregate, sit in dua, and you'll honor the dua which we have. So everybody went, they sat on Mount Abu Qubais. Then he himself said, I'll come and join you later. Let me go and read my own dua by the Kaaba. This dua that he read is a quite beautiful dua. He stood by the Kaaba. He knew very well, when you ask about Allah, He is near. He answers the supplication of the supplicant when he supplicates towards Him. He went near the Kaaba, he said, oh Allah, who do we have in hope except hope in you? Oh Allah, withdraw your protection from that army. Oh Allah, please listen to this next line. This line is of the utmost importance. Oh Allah, whoever is an enemy of your house is an enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever is the enemy of your house is our enemy as well. Oh Allah, defeat their forces. He said this, he finished his dua by the Kaaba. Then he asked one of his sons, what's the situation near Mount Abu Qubais? One of his sons said that the situation near Mount of Abu Qubais is that what's happened? That we see a black cloud coming from the direction of the Red Sea. As soon as Abd al-Muttalib heard this, he said, do not worry, we're going to be victorious. As in, you think these Abd al-Muttalib, Abu Talib, you think these people are just normal Meccans? These are from the descendants and the line of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. These are awsiya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala between Jesus and Muhammad. This is the cradle of revelation. You find what? You find he said, do not worry, we're going to be victorious. Abraha, what did he do? Abraha rode on his elephant. His elephant, he had called it Mahmud, the praiseworthy elephant. Because he thought to himself that this elephant will look after me. Some of the narrations mention he had 1 elephant. Some mention he had 8 elephants. Some mention he had 10. Some mention he had 12. Irrespective of the number of elephants, he entered with his elephants arrogantly, thinking that I'm going to come, I'll defeat these people, I'll finish them. You see that arrogance that he came with? At the end, the Quran showed that you plan, we plan, and we are the greatest of planners. What did the Quran say? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Their plan went astray. Wa arsala alayhim tayran ababil. What did he do? Allah ordered, like he can at any moment, for all the creation submit to him. Allah ordered that birds with 3 stones in each paw, according to the narratives, with 3 stones, they come, وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. They come in their flock of birds, they throw the stones down, تَرْمِيهِمْ بِحِجَارَةٍ مِنْ سِجِّيلٍ. The clay that they had would strike this person, فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. He made them like the straw that is destroyed on the ground. He came with all his arrogance, with all his pomp. At the end, Allah said, فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. Asf ma'kul, what does asf ma'kul mean? It means the asf talks of, straw. Straw without grain, and you've pelted it on the ground. Likewise, these people were pelted on the ground. The narrations mention that Abraha, trying to get away, eventually he was finished as well. Therefore, you find that the story is a fascinating one. So many different incidents. The question arises, what are the lessons from this story which affect us in our life today? The first lesson of this story, which is of the utmost importance, which affects us in our life today, is the lesson of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? As in, I'm surprised how many Muslims today you find. Many are Muslim. They're going through a trial, going through a tribulation. They'll come to you with a sense of despair. Sayyid Ammar, I'm facing difficulty with my health, difficulty with my wealth, difficulty with my education, difficulty with my family relations. The question there is, where is your tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As in, you find Abraha, when he faced Abd al-Muttalib said, the house has its protector. As in, are you truly asking me, do I have tawakkul, do I have trust? I have ultimate trust in this Lord. In which way? In that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says have tawakkul, tawakkul doesn't mean I don't work, I don't ask, and I just say, Ya Allah, look after my affairs. Tawakkul means with the faculties that I have and the relationship that I have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I use those faculties and then I say, Tawakkaltu ala al-hayy alladhi la yamut. Why would I need to have trust in Allah's creation instead of having trust in the Creator Himself? You find Abdul Muttalib taught us a lesson. Until today in the world, when a person in Muslim communities today, do you know how many have fallen into depression? They'll tell you, I take depression tablets regularly. You say, why? Say, you know, the world is on top of me. I'm in a state of despair. Where's that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Your Lord who created you when you were insignificant and not worth mentioning. And He fashioned you from a leech-like clot. He gave you eyesight. He gave you the ability to smell and taste and hear. He gave you the rational and the intellect above the animal. What more does that Lord have to show you in terms of generosity? Doesn't the Quran say, Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbika al-kareem? What has made you stop coming towards that generous Lord? That Lord who gives us when we ask and we don't ask, isn't it? As in Munajat Sha'baniyah, don't we say, Oh, you who gives to the one who asks and the one who doesn't ask. There are people who don't ask, Allah gives. There are people who ask, Allah gives as well. That's why I remember Nabi Musa, just before he was dying, Nabi Musa, before he was dying, he said, I wonder who's going to look after my daughter when I die? As in, is anyone going to protect my daughter? At that moment, Jibreel came to him. He said, Musa, come near us. Your stick that you had to strike the sea, strike it again. He struck it again. As soon as he struck it again, the sea opened. He said, Musa, what do you see? He said, I see a rock at the bottom of the sea. He said, now remove that rock. As soon as he removed it, he said, what do you see? He said, I see a worm at the bottom of that rock. He said, oh Musa, the Lord who looks after a worm at the bottom of a rock, at the bottom of a sea, and you're wondering who will look after your daughter when you die. As in, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can look after all His creation at the bottom of the sea, then why not place that tawakkul? Abdul Muttalib with all calmness, give me my camels, that house I'm not worried about. I have a trust in a Lord who's already shown me so many bounties. You think I'm worried about what's going to happen? I'm sure that with this trust, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look after me. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two is that Allah wanted the event of Ashab al-Fil and the message of the pebbles which were thrown to be remembered every year at Hajj. What do I mean? I mean at Muzdalifah is where Ashab al-Fil were finished. Where? Muzdalifah. How many people go to Muzdalifah and don't know Ashab al-Fil was there? At Muzdalifah, let's see the reactions of the people at Muzdalifah. Why are we not having a good place to sit right now? You know, I want a nice place to sit, like, you know, under this darkness of this night sky, and I see someone sleeping on a rock, and another person sleeping on a Coke can, and I see people like this. Why don't we have a nice place to sleep? You find that's reaction number one. Number two, when are we getting to Mina? As in, aren't we late for Mina? Are we on the border of Mina? No. That's reaction number two. Number three, this group isn't organized at all. As in, I wish they'd be more organized. Instead, they bring us here in Muzdalifah, and that group... And you've gone to Hajj to become a better human being or to go backwards? The story of Ashab al-Fil took place where? Took place at Muzdalifah, on the border of Mina. Ask yourself, when you go to Muzdalifah, what's your responsibility in the area of Muzdalifah? To pick up what from the ground? To pick up that which Allah used to defeat His enemy. He's now asking you, are you ready to use it to defeat your enemy? The word Muzdalifah comes from the word izdilaf, or the word zulf. Those, both of them mean what? Nearness. It means that when you come to Muzdalifah, you've come to the point of your nearest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at the darkness of the night, don't say it's a dark night. Say, Ya Allah, I'm picking up pebbles to take me from darkness to light. I remember the day you destroyed Ashab al-Fil. One by one, you finished them with pebbles. Now can I destroy the enemies in my life? The enemy that is envy, Ya Allah. The enemy that is hypocrisy, Ya Allah. The enemy that is lust, Ya Allah. the enemy that is desire, gluttony. Each of these are enemies, aren't they? As in sometimes we think our enemies are external. Our real enemies are internal. When I come to Muzdalifah, the next time you go on Hajj, if your Maulana has not told you what Muzdalifah is about, and all you're concerned is, can I pick up 70 pebbles and do they have to be 4 meters in circumference or 2.1? What are you talking about? Honestly. As in what's Hajj become? Hajj has just become a fiqh session. That's it. That's all it's become. Have I picked up the right pebble? Is the curve at the top of this pebble proper, or must it be curved like, Habibi, it's a pebble? As in it's a pebble at the end of the day. What is it? A mathematics exam, a degree in law? It's a pebble. You pick up a pebble to flick the pebble. But to flick a pebble to remove shaitan. Not to pick up a pebble so that, yes, alhamdulillah, fiqh-wise I completed my Hajj. Spiritually, did you complete a Hajj? How many of us on the second time we went to Hajj, we were much better than the first? Because the first, all you're concerned about is, am I doing this? Yes, fiqh is important, but more important was Hajj was a revolution of the soul. Therefore, the second lesson, Allah wanted Muzdalifah, where it took place, to remain an area of pebbles, removing enemies for the rest of your life. Number 3, the third lesson, that however arrogant the oppressor, when they come against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah embarrasses that oppressor, isn't it? As in Abraha, how arrogant was he? Entering with an elephant, saying that Kaaba, I'll destroy it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying, let him come, let him come. Many before him are arrogant, many after him will be arrogant. I'll finish them one by one the same way. You see the first couple of words of the verse, what does it say? Alam tara, did you not see, or do you not reflect on what happened to that arrogant oppressor? The same arrogance he had, we finished him, the same we'll do with any arrogant dictator. Have you recently seen the Arab Spring? Yes? Dictator sitting in Egypt for years, in one moment, Ashab al-Fil came back to life again, isn't it? In one moment, they told him, get out, get out. How arrogant you were, putting in prison the great scholars of Egypt. For years, people like Sheikh Abdul Hamid Kishk, Sheikh Ahmed al-Mahallawi, placed in prison because of their voices against injustice. Get out. You see that dictator in Libya, for years claiming, I had nothing to do with the killing of a scholar of Al-Muhammad. A scholar of Al-Muhammad, like Imam Musa Sadr in the late 70s, the way they finished his life off. And then Allah told him, you think you're that arrogant? Remove yourself. Die a death of a person who will be embarrassed when he dies, and from his own people. You see how Saddam, 1 minute you find from Ashab al-Fil, I'll come and destroy the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in 91, wasn't it? I'll come and destroy. Where did they find him? In a hole like a rat hiding. How many times Ashab al-Fil comes back to you that Rasulullah was told, Muhammad, you see these arrogant Qurayshis, they're telling you that we're scared the Romans and the Persians will destroy the Kaaba. I'll protect the Kaaba. I'll look after it. Do not worry. Every arrogant group that comes, I'll finish them. That you find is number 3. Number 4, the fourth lesson. You find one surah with so many lessons. The fourth lesson, in every religion, we have the good and the extreme, isn't it? Christianity, Abraha was extreme. Does this mean I say the whole of Christianity is like Abraha? Not at all, isn't it? Abraha was an extreme Christian. It's either Christianity or we kill you. But Najashi in Abyssinia was a good Christian, wasn't he? Didn't Rasulullah, when he needed help, go to Najashi? Didn't Jaffari bin Abu Talib go to Najashi? If I can see in the story of Ashab al-Fil that Abraha was an extreme Christian, therefore I'm not going to label every Christian as extreme. Likewise with Muslims. In Islam we've had extreme and we are moderate. You can never generalize just because of an individual claiming to represent a religion. That's number 4. And number 5, a quite stunning lesson emerges. What is it? The lesson that sometimes you think when an army comes to attack my house, you think that there's no wisdom in my part watching them attack. But believe me, I have things planned which you don't see. What do I mean? Do you know Bilal al-Habashi's mother is Abraha's niece? Bilal's mother is Abraha's niece. Abraha coming back, he was with his wife and his niece. One narration says with his sister and his niece. She got caught on the way back by a tribe, the Khad'amites. When she got caught, her name was Jumana. She got caught by the Khad'amites. As soon as she got caught by the Khad'amites, the narration states that when she got caught by them, they sold her off to Bani Jamuh. When they sold her to Bani Jamuh, who was the head of Bani Jamuh at the time? A man by the name of Khalaf or Khalaf. That man who was in charge, the narrations mention, he had a servant by the name of Rabah. Rabah married Jumana. They had 3 sons. They had 2 children, 2 sons and a daughter. They had Ghufra, their daughter. They had a son called Khalid and a son called Bilal. When Ashab al-Fil came, did you ever think a man like Bilal would be born from Abraha's line? Would you ever think Bilal al-Habashi would be born from Abraha? Yeah, sometimes the Khabith comes out of the Tayyib. Sometimes the Tayyib comes out of the Khabith, isn't it? Sometimes good comes out of bad, bad comes out of good. Nobody would have seen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He allowed Ashab al-Fil to come in, that the mu'adhin of the religion of Islam would be born from that incident. Bilal, Rasulullah used to say, Bilal, stand, sweeten me with your voice, Bilal, bring pleasure to me. This Bilal, the first mu'adhin in the religion of Islam, was able to remove the tones of racism in the religion by reciting the adhan, and the people would come to him and say, Bilal, Ya Rasulullah, Bilal says the adhan. When he says the adhan, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Bilal couldn't say sheen, he'd say seen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. At this moment, Rasulullah said, the seen of Bilal is sheen in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Bilal who remained loyal. In other words, a lesson emerges that in life, Allah plans sometimes, we don't see where the plan is heading. But there is a wisdom that when a great Sahabi like Bilal comes from this incident, nobody knew Bilal. Nobody knew it was his mother. His mother was the niece of Abraha who tried to attack the Kaaba. And the Muslims didn't care, because your past actions should not come back to you. In other words, the tone of the story was what? That the Kaaba is a place of sanctity, a place that has to be protected, a place that has to be honored, not a place that is dishonored. Someone says, what do you mean the Kaaba should not be dishonored? We can dishonor the Kaaba in 2 ways. One way, in 3 ways. The first way we can dishonor the Kaaba is by neglecting the visitation of the Kaaba. Do you know, in India and certain parts of Africa, there are people who save their whole life to go to Hajj. Their whole life. He saves to go where? To go to Hajj. His whole life, that's his finances, he'll save his whole life to go to Hajj. Do you know, in the West we have people who $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 is peanuts for them, it's nothing. He'll tell you, but I'm not ready for Hajj yet. You say to him, what do you mean you're not ready? He said, because if I come back from Hajj, I have to be religious. There are people saving to visit Allah, and you have the audacity to tell Allah, in my own time I'll come. 7th Imam used to say, if a person can afford Hajj but doesn't go, then he is along the lines of kufr. If he can afford, but he doesn't. Why? Amir al-Mu'mineen, just before he died, he said in his will, do not fear Allah in relation to his house. Fear Allah in relation to his house. Fear Allah in relation to his house. For if you abandon his house, you abandon your dignity. When a person does a good favor for me, I go to visit him at home. When my Lord has done so much for me, I don't go and visit him. إِنَّكَ تَدْعُونِي فَأُوَلِّ عَنْكَ. You invite me in dua iftitah. You invite me, I turn my back to you. Here you find that's one way of dishonoring the Kaaba. A second way is by not observing the laws associated with visiting the Kaaba, isn't it? As in, if I go to visit the Kaaba, Allah has said my house is such a sanctuary that you have to observe the laws of the house. There are laws which we have to observe in Hajj, and even outside Hajj. If we don't observe these laws, we're not respecting the sanctuary of the Kaaba, the sanctity of the Kaaba. As in, if now somebody said to me, said, Ammar, come tonight to our house for dinner. When I'd go to their house, I'd make sure that I'm showing discipline, respect, morals, like any human. I tell you, one way of dishonoring the Kaaba is by acting like an animal near the Kaaba. And I tell you, Imam al-Sadiq was right when he said, look through my fingers and see how many animals are doing tawaf, not humans. This year in Hajj, if you saw the animals doing tawaf, pushing and hitting and jumping. I'm not accusing those who've been pushed. I'm saying there are people who actively will push another Muslim while doing tawaf. Actively, they'll enjoy it. You find that you're not honoring the sanctity of the Kaaba. The Kaaba, you walk around, if someone pushes you, you remain patient, but never in your own intention do you make sure that you hurt another Muslim. Likewise, you don't hurt any of the animals near the Kaaba, isn't it? As in, a fly comes on me, will I kill a fly if it comes on me on the Kaaba? I can't. If an insect, a grasshopper comes on me near the Kaaba, I can't. The Kaaba is a sanctuary, it's Allah's protection. And that's why, how did people know Imamate was a gift from God? Through Imam al-Jawad and Hajj, isn't it? Before that, nobody believed Imamate was from God. Ali ibn Abi Talib became an Imam at 33. Imam al-Kadhim became an Imam at 20. They said anybody can become. If you learn enough, at 30, 20, 40, you can become an Imam. It was Imam al-Jawad's debate at the age of 8 which made people realize Imam was from Allah. And it was regarding the sanctuary of the Kaaba. Do you know our 8th Imam what he says? He says the greatest ever honor for Al-Muhammad was the birth of Imam al-Jawad. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, Aba Abdullah. What do you mean Imam al-Jawad? Imam al-Jawad, why? Because before that day, an Imam could be someone quite old. And so people said, oh, their knowledge is not from God. Anyone can get that knowledge through memorization. When Imam al-Jawad became an Imam at 8, that's when people realized, hold on. That knowledge isn't normal. And what was it about? It was about Hajj. Because Yahya bin Aktam looked at him. He said, young boy, you think you're someone with knowledge? They call you from Al-Muhammad? He said, no, I will try and endeavor to help you. What can I help you with? He said, young boy, what is the kafara for someone who hunts while they are in the state of ihram? It's a good question, isn't it? Because there's a kafara when I'm around the Kaaba. If I'm going hunting, I'm in the state of ihram. The Kaaba has a sanctity. I have to honor that sanctity. Imam al-Jawad was asked, what's the kafara for a muhrim who's hunting? Imam al-Jawad said, your question's very vague. He said to him, what do you mean it's vague? He said, is it the kafara for Hajj or for Umrah? Was it done in the daytime or in the night? Was it a young boy or an old person? Was it a wild animal or a normal animal? Was it for Umrah or was it for Hajj? Was it a male or was it... This person said, okay, hold back now, I understand. As in maybe my question was a bit vague. As in you're trying to compare a normal human being with Muhammad ibn Ali. And it's impossible. So therefore what you find, there was a sanctity. That Kaaba was to be honored. And that's why only a lowly human being would not honor that Kaaba, isn't it? As in when anybody goes there, even the person who's not that religious will still show respect. It has to be a low human being who doesn't honor that Kaaba. 2 years after Karbala, exactly, Yazid bin Muawiyah orders his soldiers to burn down the Kaaba. As in I get surprised when someone says to me that Yazid bin Muawiyah can't be blamed for Karbala because he wasn't at Karbala, so you can't blame him. Okay, let's not blame him for Karbala. How about the burning of the Kaaba? How about the pillaging of Medina, the cradle of Rasulullah? Ordering men to rape the woman of Medina. Any woman you see, rape her, he said. Children were born the following year out of rape, out of wedlock. And then he went to the Kaaba, he ordered his soldiers, burn down the Kaaba. That man, what sanctity does he have? As in surely a man who has reverence for the religion of Islam would say, I can't burn down the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole house of revelation, that house Ibrahim had built, yet you found with his audacity, he came and burnt. You think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let him go? Same with Ashab al-Fil. Abraha was finished, Yazid bin Muawiyah, while they're burning the Kaaba, they received news, Yazid bin Muawiyah had gone out hunting, all that came back is a limb. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. They try and attack my Kaaba and he thinks sitting in Damascus, he's going to be okay. I'll plan and he'll plan, but he'll see my plan always wins. My plan, he tried to destroy my Kaaba, then I'll finish him and I'll finish those with him. Why? That Kaaba was meant to be a place of sanctuary, of sanctity. And you found that a place like the Kaaba, where Hussein ibn Ali's grandfather received revelation, where his father was born, where his grandmother sacrificed all she had for the religion of Islam. And yet Aba Abdullah comes to the Kaaba to perform Hajj. Hajj, where his religion was founded on his grandfather's Hajj. He comes, Yazid bin Muawiyah orders his governor, behead the man if you see him. Behead him. Even near the Kaaba where the fly is meant to be honored, the fly. Yet the son of Fatima al-Zahra is shown less respect than a fly. A fly is meant to be honored. Imam Abu Abdullah is ordered, leave the Kaaba. You're not allowed to stay here. And someone said to him, stay, perform your Hajj. He said, if I stay here, they'll behead me here. They have no sanctity for this place. This place which was founded by the grandfathers of Abu Abdullah, Abdul Muttalib and Khuwaylid, the father of Khadija. At the end, they ordered him, leave the land of Medina, leave the land of Mecca. You are not welcomed here. Can you imagine how difficult it was for Abu Abdullah at this stage of his life? Can you imagine how difficult it was for him that he comes to this area of Mecca where his grandmother Khadija was living, where his grandmother Khadija gave all that she had. And you know, he had a particular relation with his grandmother Khadija. He had never seen her. But at Karbala, he stood in front of the army and he said, am I not the grandson of Khadija? Am I not the grandson of Rasulullah? Why did he have this relationship with Khadija? One opinion is Khadija sacrificed from her life. Abu Abdullah sacrificed his life. Another opinion is Khadija gave all that she had away. Abu Abdullah gave all that he had away. But there's a third opinion which touches the heart of the lover of Abu Abdullah, especially that lover who has sat by his grave in Karbala. You know what the third opinion is? It has to do with the kafan of Abu Abdullah. Why? Because it's as if there's a reflection between the way he died and the way his grandmother died. Someone says, what do you mean? Any human being, when they die, deserves a shroud on their body, isn't it? As in a human being, when they die, you will go, you'll ask for a kafan, bring a kafan, cover their body. Especially if they're injured. If you have marks of injury, you'd say, come and cover those marks. A human being doesn't deserve to die without having a kafan on their body. Why would Abu Abdullah remember his grandmother? It's as if his grandmother, when she died, the narrations, you know what they say to us? When she died, because they were so poverty-stricken, Rasulullah bought a kafan to cover his wife's body. When he bought this kafan to cover the wife's body, the narrations mention to us that as soon as he bought the kafan to cover his wife's body, he realized the kafan wasn't long enough. Khadija, who had given all her money away, there was now no kafan for her body. Rasulullah looked towards the heavens. As soon as he looked towards the heavens, the narrations mentioned that he looked towards the heavens and he said, Ya Allah, I am your prophet. This is Khadija. If it wasn't for her wealth, this religion would not grow. Ya Allah, now when I'm burying her, I don't even have a kafan to put on her body. At this moment, we have a narration which states that Jibreel came to Rasulullah with 5 kafans. Brothers, you know where I'm heading. But I leave this night to you. You know where I'm heading. Remember the sanctity of any human when they die. They should have a kafan to cover their body. When he bought the 5 kafans, Rasulullah looked at Jibreel. He said to him, oh Jibreel, may I ask you, who's the first kafan for? He said, Ya Rasulullah, the first kafan is for your wife Khadija, that when she dies, there is a kafan to cover her body. He said to him, Ya Jibreel, who's the second kafan for? He said, Ya Rasulullah, the second kafan is for you, that when you die, there is a kafan to cover your body. He said to him, Jibreel, the third kafan, you know the third kafan hurts every lover of Al Muhammad. He said, the third kafan is for Fatima al-Zahra. So that when Fatima al-Zahra dies, only Allah knows what that rib went through behind the door. So that when Fatima al-Zahra dies, there is a kafan to cover her body. He said to him, oh Jibreel, tell me who the 4th kafan is for. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, the 4th kafan is for Ali ibn Abi Talib. That when he dies, there is a kafan to cover his body. He said to him, Ya Jibreel, tell me who is the 5th kafan for. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, the 5th kafan is for Hassan ibn Ali. That when he dies, there is a kafan to cover his body. He looked towards him, he had tears in his eyes. He said to him, Jibreel, tell me where is the kafan for Abu Abdullah? Jibreel, tell me about Abu Abdullah. Will he die with a kafan or without? Jibrail's answer hurts. He looked towards Rasulullah. You know that moment Rasulullah's in tears. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, Abdullah will die without a kafan on his body. He said to him, why? He said, because the horses will trample on the body of Abu Abdullah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al-Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Raise us with the Imam of our time. Allow us to be of those who honor the Kaaba through our behavior and through our Hajj. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.